India and Pakistan are two countries that seem to be piling embers in a husk. Both store explosive anger and emotions deep down, which then turn into a raging fire that consumes each other. The recent conflict between India and Pakistan began on April 22, 2025, when a group of people attacked a group of Hindu tourists in Pahalgam, Kashmir, killing 26 people. The Indian government immediately accused the militant group of being supported by Pakistan. This accusation was denied by Islamabad, which instead requested a neutral investigation. At the end of April, the Indian government announced a temporary freeze on the Indus Water Treaty of 1960 and banned most visas for Pakistani citizens. This made the situation even hotter. Without hesitation, Pakistan retaliated by suspending all trade with India and symbolically closing the entire border and airspace to Indian flights. The situation became even more tense with rumors of India's military action plan. Pakistan then deployed a large number of troops to the border and announced that it would only use nuclear weapons if the country's existence was threatened. In the early hours of May 2025, a conventional clash finally occurred. Indian forces launched air and missile strikes on Pakistani territory and Kashmir, managed by Pakistan, citing the targeting of militant camps that triggered the April attack. In the initial attack, India fired various types of long-range weapons at least 5 different locations, which according to the Indian government were terrorist infrastructure. Over the course of May 6 to 7, India claimed to have destroyed 9 locations related to militant groups suspected of being responsible for the tourist attack in Kashmir. The Indian government insisted that all targets bombed were militant targets with careful planning and asserted that no civilians were harmed. In contrast, Pakistan stated that the attacks hit civilian buildings, including a mosque that collapsed and killed several people. Overall, Pakistan reported at least 31 civilians killed and dozens injured in the wave of attacks. The Pakistani government also insisted that there were no militant activities at the 6 locations attacked, making the incident a violation of sovereignty. In response to the Indian airstrikes, the Pakistani military immediately fired artillery at the Indian side of Kashmir and claimed to have shot down several Indian fighter jets. Pakistani media reported that the Chinese-made J-10 fighter jets successfully shot down at least 2 Indian fighter jets, including 1 French-made Rafale. Meanwhile, Indian sources stated that 3 Indian planes crashed in Indian Kashmir and the pilots survived with injuries. Both sides exchanged claims of shooting down each other's aircraft. For example, the PM's office in Pakistan claimed 5 Indian planes and drones had been shot down, while India called the news disinformation. As a result of the missile and artillery fire across the border, air and land transportation routes were halted due to the closure of airspace and several commercial flights were at risk of disruption. In the increasingly heated situation, the conflict between India and Pakistan was carried out with various types of modern military weapons and tactics. In the air, India deployed its superior fleet of fighter jets, including French-made Rafale and Russian-made Sukhoi aircraft. Meanwhile, Pakistan relies on China's J-10 as the spearhead of its air attack and its aging JF-16 fleet, which was previously procured from the United States. For air defense systems, India has deployed the highly advanced Russian S-400 missile. Meanwhile, Pakistan has acquired China's HQ-9 missile, which is 1 level below Russia's S-300. As a result, the air battle presents a high-tech confrontation between the Meteor air-to-air missile on the Rafale and the Place 15 on the J-10. Interestingly, US observations show that Pakistan has indeed deployed J-10s to face the Rafale fleet, while Pakistan's F-16s were not deployed, reducing the risk of diplomatic pressure from the United States. On the ground, both sides exchange heavy artillery and mortar fire across the line of control in Kashmir. Pakistan fires artillery across the border into Indian territory, particularly in border areas of Kashmir, which can cause civilian and military casualties. India, with a much larger ground force of around 1.24 million active troops compared to Pakistan's 560,000, has also directed its tanks and heavy artillery, including 3,740 main battle tanks and 9,743 artillery pieces. Although there have been no reports of large-scale ground battles, another tactic believed to be used is drone and guided missile attacks. Pakistan has recently tested several short-range ballistic missiles, including the Abdali missile with a range of 450 kilometers and the Fateh missile with a range of 120 kilometers, as well as other ballistic missiles on submarines that are part of its nuclear arsenal. Meanwhile, India has supersonic cruise missiles like the BrahMos with a range of 300 kilometers and other land-based ballistic missiles to attack long-range military targets. Both countries have also incorporated combat drones into their arsenals, with India operating the Heron surveillance drone and planning to acquire the Predator. Pakistan, on the other hand, operates the Turkish-made Bayraktar TB2 and Akinci drones. The use of drones or ground-launched missiles is intended to reduce the risk of pilot casualties, allowing attacks to proceed with lower risk. However, the direct impact of these military attacks is severe, causing loss of life, damage to civilian and religious infrastructure, economic disruption, and public panic due to air raid alarms and the closure of civilian flights. What's even more concerning is that an open war between India and Pakistan always carries the potential for nuclear escalation, given that both countries possess weapons of mass destruction. Military analysts emphasize that both sides have so far been reluctant to use nuclear weapons unless they are truly cornered. Pakistan's statement even emphasizes that nuclear weapons will only be deployed if there is a threat to the country's existence. Nevertheless, the risk of escalation cannot be ignored. Experts warn that even limited conflicts can escalate into nuclear conflicts if there is a misunderstanding or a deadly attack that opens the Pandora's box of nuclear war. For example, if one side suffers heavy losses on the front lines or strategic attacks such as destroying important military facilities, the other side could sense the threshold of nuclear threat. Initial indicators of nuclear tension are already visible. Pakistan has tested several medium-range ballistic missiles, which are interpreted as a signal of strength. Meanwhile, India has closed part of its territory and increased military flight readiness. Both sides have also imposed communication restrictions. For example, Pakistan states that there is no open communication channel with India at this time, so the military deterrent system works more strongly. Pakistan has even declared that the Kashmir border area, especially the control line, is under emergency situation, so it is ready to respond to any military aggression. On the other hand, although India has adhered to the doctrine of no first use of nuclear weapons, Pakistan's attack on sensitive facilities such as water sources clearly raises strategic concerns, particularly from Pakistan. The international response to this conflict has been quite broad. Major countries and international organizations have consistently called for restraint and de-escalation. The United States, for instance, has actively lobbied both governments to exercise restraint. The U.S. Secretary of State and other high-ranking officials in Washington have communicated with New Delhi and Islamabad, urging them to prevent the situation from escalating into an open war. The U.S. president even hopes that the crisis will end soon. Meanwhile, Russia and China have also expressed concern. The main worry is the potential spillover of the conflict into a wider area, including possible regional security disruptions. Analysts at the Atlantic Council highlight that this crisis occurs at a vulnerable point, given China's foreign policy involvement through Pakistan. Meanwhile, Beijing itself is likely to emphasize a neutral public stance while quietly monitoring the performance of its J-10 fighter jets in combat with Rafale jets. According to some expert comments, Gulf countries such as Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates can be effective mediators due to their good relations with both parties. The UN organization condemns the violence and calls for a ceasefire, as well as warning of the unpredictable costs of nuclear escalation. Indicators that the conflict has the potential to escalate into a nuclear realm also emerge through rhetoric and high-level military preparedness actions. Both countries have affirmed their commitment to nuclear deterrence. Pakistan, which is worried about disruptions to water supplies due to India's suspension of the water treaty, emphasizes that its military is on high alert. Meanwhile, India has reinforced its defensive stance that it will only consider using nuclear weapons if its existence is truly threatened. While there are no hard indications such as the launch of strategic missiles or the relocation of nuclear weapons to full alert status, the dynamics of military communication between the two sides still contain the potential for misunderstandings that could trigger a nuclear crisis.